The bell has rung. So get seated and join Elementary Schooled for today's interview.
I would like to give a shout out and sincere thanks to a new sponsor for this season of Elementary Schooled. This is Mazda of Bountiful, Utah. I've driven a Mazda for 7 years, and the service and care at Bountiful Mazda I have received has been superb. Thank you, and thank you for sponsoring. Welcome to Elementary Schooled. This is Season 2, Episode 4. Meet Gloria Taylor. I hope that our listeners feel just like I did when I met you, that you are just strong and just a bright light in this world. You have a bachelor's degree in elementary education and also a master's degree. You have an endorsement in the gifted and talented programs. You've also worked with at-risk gifted students. You have received the Outstanding Teacher Award from KSL, which is a local news station here in Salt Lake City, Utah. You have taught 5th grade for 20 years, and 7 of those years included working as an SEM teacher, which is basic program for enrichment. You started tutoring in Indiana 40 years ago, which I'm assuming has led to you starting your own learning center for tutoring, and you have had this business for 20 years. Wow. I love that your personal experiences as a student struggling with your own ADD and dyslexia has driven your work and led you to where you are now. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You bet. I'm excited to share all these wonderful learning experiences that I've had over the years.
So let me start with a question. In your 40 plus years of working with children of all different backgrounds and personalities and needs, what stands out to you most about how children learn best, just in general?
All right. I want to take these children and I want to break them into 3 categories. The first one is gifted children, average children, and then struggling students, because within a family, we have all of those components. And within the classroom, we also run across that after. Also, I think it's important to identify the different groups. First of all, gifted. In our public education, I think gifted are one of the most neglected students that we have because they're bored most of the time in the classroom. So as a teacher, I'm going to share with you some of the approaches that I took in dealing with this type of children. One thing I think, and I don't know that we can even do this anymore, but was to include the community, people coming in with expertise in different areas to work with gifted children. So Richard was one of the local historians that came into my classroom, and we studied Lewis and Clark. They did in-depth research about Lewis, Clark, Thomas Jefferson, and they did the research. They came up with presentations. They made Fort Clatsop. They made the Mandan Fort. They made the 3 boats that went up and down the Missouri River. And then after they had come up with the presentation, I went up to the University of Utah, and because they were having a presentation, what a coincidence, on Lewis and Clark. And so I told them what my students had done. And they invited the students, the gifted students, to go up to the University of Utah and present to the professors. Therefore, they produced a very impressive product. And with gifted kids, they need stimulation, they need opportunity, and they need to produce a product. That's very important. All right, for the average student, they hate to read. They don't want to do this. They want to be out and about. So I think the challenge as a teacher, tutor, is to create excitement in a book. Charlotte's Web is one of my favorite books because children learn to love reading by listening to it, by thinking of Wilbur and thinking of the challenges that he had in his life. So we took and we actually built a fair and it had a Ferris wheel that worked, and we had Wilbur, and he walked around. And some of the children took their Wilburs home and they fed them corn on the mantle. But I think as a teacher, you have to get kids excited about reading. Children need background information and they need excitement from a teacher, and that's part of the motivation. I think for an average kid, you got to have excitement about it. But reading with a student is very important because you can discuss ideas. It gives you an opportunity and topics to have a conversation about. The third group is struggling readers. They have trouble with decoding. They get discouraged because by the time they're in third grade, they know from their grades and what reading group that they're in that they're not good readers. Nobody needs to tell them that. So what I found over the years is we expect struggling readers to do things they can't do because they don't have prior knowledge. So what I decided to do was kind of an experiment with my struggling readers is I wanted to learn about the circus, Barnum and Bailey Circus. So we did a ton of research together, and then I actually got tickets and I took the class to the Barnum and Bailey Circus. Now, when we got back, did they have plenty to read and write about? Were they interested in the animals? Were they interested in how the circus got started? All that prior knowledge, that background information was exciting to them. And they then could write it down. And then I brought in parents from the community who were well educated, and they would help the children write their stories. Okay, do those kids feel like struggling readers anymore? No, because we gave them the opportunity to be successful. Oftentimes, we don't do that. Now, I know that there's lots of problems with decoding, that Letters is a new program that's come into elementary school, which is very, very important.
It is, and it works.
Yeah, and we're not doing whole language learning anymore. We're moving to a phonics base. I think providing kids with experiences helps them to move out of the struggling reader syndrome and to become excited. I did this. I knew what to write about because I had experienced it. So that's something that I found to be very, very beneficial.
You're just trying to spark an interest in the struggling student, aren't we?
When you see the sparkle in their eyes, you know you've been successful.
Can you describe differences and similarities for what it's like for kids who feel frustrated with their schoolwork as maybe what it was like just a few years ago?
As I thought about that I started teaching many years ago. And we didn't have all the constraints that teachers have today. There was more opportunity to be creative. I mean, I remember we did a dollhouse. I'm going, seriously? That's what I did in second grade.
That's cool. I love that.
But there was an opportunity for creativity. There's no time for that anymore. Teaching to the test has become very destructive in education because what children don't want to do is just be reading, answering questions, reading, answering questions. That's what a lot of children experience in school.
Yeah.
And they feel frustrated about that. Why can't we? I remember when they took away the Halloween parade in our school. I remember, and I just went in my room and closed the door and we did it anyway. But but you take all the fun out of
it. Parade. We do, but there are a lot of parameters around it. How's that?
You can't do this, you can't do that. And there were problems with it. I'm the first, to admit that. But we've taken, not everything, but we've taken a lot of fun out of learning and out of school. My fifth grade teacher played the marimbas. And so she would every day we'd have some time and she would play that and we would sing songs, and I loved it because I'm an artsy person. That really called to me. If we look in classrooms today, it's become more sterile.
I would agree with that.
And that is because there's so many constraints. in the classroom. Like you said, you have emails, you have to do this, you have to go to that workshop, you have to do it this way and that way. Well, what about the kids' way? What about it's going to work really well in your classroom?
I
So,
do think there are teachers that really recognize that, and we try to bring in, I know our second grade team at our school is really good about dressing up. They were dressing up like little old grandmas for 100 day. And that is probably something the kids will never forget. And so when we can bring in little tidbits, it really does make an impression, and they need the fun.
they do.
That's what
Kids
you're
need
saying.
fun.
You use specific practices to help teach children with ADHD or nervous energy. Will you give some examples of this teaching style and the positive effects it has?
All right. Because I'm ADD, I understand what it feels like to be a child in a classroom. And as a teacher, I noticed that the boys between 9 o'clock and lunch, some of them always became a discipline problem. I didn't like having to discipline those kids all the time. So several of them were ADD, and I go, I can figure out a better way to do this. So what I did is I developed a program where we had a half hour of physical exercise every day. So they didn't go to recess. They were with me for 15 minutes and then the 15 minutes of recess. So I had a half hour every day. We would go to the gym. We would work out just like if you were going to the gym and you were going to a class. So we did push-ups, and I did it with them. Everything we did was very physical. They would walk back to class in a half hour. I didn't have any discipline problems because you burn off the excess energy that they have. So I felt that this exercise program was important, but I took it to the next step. Because why do kids have problems on the playground? That's just a given, right? When do kids get in trouble? On the playground.
Yeah.
So one thing I realized is they don't know what to do on the playground. So what I did is on Fridays, I kind of alternated over the years, but I hired a young man who loved sports. He was in college. And so he came, and for an hour on Friday, and you have to say, how did I get away with all this? I don't know. I just did it. But for an hour on Friday, we worked on skills. And the kids learned how to play soccer. And so over time, what did they do at recess? They didn't go out and fight with each other. They went out and had a game of soccer. And he taught them how to play basketball and taught them how different skills. So when they went outside, they had something constructive that they could do besides just walk around and, punch your neighbor or whatever.
This is a current problem. This has been spoken about many times in our faculty meetings the last couple of years.
I solved that problem.
Yeah,
I did.
you did.
And then another thing we did is I felt like nutrition and learning to watch your weight was important for young people. So I brought my personal trainer in. His name was Dash. Oh, he was a big, gorgeous dude. And he came in once a month on Friday, and he worked out with those kids for that hour. And I'll tell you, when we went back to class, all you heard was the turning of pages because they didn't talk, they didn't do anything but read and do what they were supposed to do because they were so tired from getting rid of this energy that young kids just carry around. And they were proud of themselves, and we monitored their weight. And it was very exciting to do that, to educate children into a better lifestyle, which who's going to teach them if we don't?
Your reward system is refreshing because you take out the sugar. Is that right?
We did fruit. So we would have, like, every couple of weeks, either I would do it or a parent would donate fruit. The kids loved it. I never gave sugar.
And so you didn't dip those apples in caramel?
No.
Because you recognize that sugar is not helpful to a child with extra energy even if that form is ADD or whatever it is.
Right. It's any child.
Yeah.
And there are other things you can do to reward kids other than candy. I mean, I see it here at my business. I don't give candy, but some of my other tutors do, and that's fine with me because they get to choose what they want to do.
Sure.
But that's what I felt. I felt as a teacher, it was my responsibility to teach the whole child. And I knew some things that we're never going to get at home. So I tried to implement them into my classroom. So kids need more play. And I felt like I really made that happen in my classroom. Play for play's sake, and then play with a purpose. Both of them were important.
When you work one-on-one, you listed quiet environment, creativity, and the physical outlet.
So like I had one student and he goes, I hate to read. And so we were reading about Abraham Lincoln and he goes, I don't care about Abraham Lincoln. And I go, really? And so anyway, we're going through the lesson and Abraham Lincoln had this habit of, he was disorganized. So he would take his legal papers and he decided to put them in his hat. And so he would have a stovetop hat. And so what we did when we got through with Abraham Lincoln is he made a hat and he put all the papers inside of the hat. Guess
How
what?
great.
He didn't hate Abraham Lincoln anymore. So the creative part has to be pulled in.
You're making a connection with that child. You feel this way, and so did Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, how exciting it was. And yes, it can be fun. It's not just, oh, another president. So in our center, because we deal with a lot of kids that have ADD, like, so the first grader, okay, like after about half an hour, the toes are tapping and da-da. So what I do is I just take them outside. We've got balls. We run races. We do an activity for 5 minutes. That gets rid of the jitters. I mean, you can't discipline them out of the jitters. You can't.
Right.
And so if you just say, okay, let's go out, and the kids will go, is it time to play with the ball? Yep. And so they'll go out and do that. And they come back calm. Even 5 minutes can make a huge difference, Melanie.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure you've seen with your tutoring.
So true. Will you talk about your learning center and what ages you take and how you assess them so people can come and find you? This is Taylor Learning Center in Kaysville, Utah.
We are a private, small tutoring business. What I found, okay, so like in reading, how do you test where a child is in reading? I can have 3 books out and I can have the child read in them. I can have them write for me. I can tell pretty much where they are.
Yeah, with your experience, yes.
From my experience. And I'm sure you're the same way. You can tell very quickly where a child is.
Sure.
And as you read and work with them, you start to see where the holes are also. And so my approach is, I'm the reading specialist at the center. And my first commitment is to teach children to love reading. Because if they don't love reading, the rest of it just doesn't matter. They're not going to do it. And then as I read and I work with them, I spend a lot of time on phonics, teaching in the phonetic language. We do, so like a session would be, a child comes in, we work on phonics for 20 minutes, we work on reading for 20 minutes, and we work on writing for 20 minutes. So that's what the child's going to get every time.
And in all 3 of those components, you bring in the creativity and the movement. Is that correct? And
Absolutely.
that's why your students are progressing, because you're bringing in the creativity and the movement with those areas where they need the academic help.
I also have a gifted component that I do here at the center. And I've had several students over the years whose parents said, my student's bored. And she goes, can you add enrichment? And so they come in on Friday and they have 2 hours of tutoring. They have an hour of reading and then they have an hour of a craft. And so we connect that craft to the book that we're reading. So that's the other component that we fill in here too. So I'm the reading expert. Kim is the specialist for students with learning disabilities. Kim worked in the district and has run the Learning Center and has done resource for many, many years. She is the best person to work with kids who have been in resource, who are really struggling. So she's kind of a little special additive that we have at our center that I think is important for parents who don't know what to do with their kids who are in resource or who are in centers. She's the expert. And then I have Leslie. Leslie works with the junior high school kids. She's very intelligent. She does the reading and the writing. And then Sue Plackey always also works for me too, doing the math junior high. And then I have Mrs. Hatch, who's awesome, and she does the kindergarten, first, second grade. So I feel like I tried to bring in experts in each field, and that's kind of how we run the centers. I shoot you where you need to be with your student. Because kids that have ADD, it usually runs in the family.
Yeah.
So we'll have 3 or 4 students that will come to the center during the course of their education, which is really exciting.
And you said some of them stay for a few years just because they want
Oh
to.
yeah. Some of them, we've had 2 kids that have stayed for 5 years.
That's incredible.
They don't come and go in 6 months. They come and stay for years. So that's what you need to know. We're not a quick fix, but we fix it eventually.
Well, good things take time. I love everything about your program. If I had a struggling student or any of these students that fell in these categories, I would absolutely send them to your center. You have a great way about you, and you do love it, and you add the fun. So thank
I
you.
love it. I do.
I do want to ask one more question as we close. How have you avoided teacher burnout?
I've been retired, 6 years? One of the things I noticed when I retired was for 10 years, I traveled all over Europe, Spain and China. And so everywhere I go, I come up with, I got to have a lesson. I got to have a lesson when I get back. So the Cologne Cathedral was just a favorite of mine. And so when I came back, for math, we spent a lot of time measuring the length of the Cologne Cathedral. And so interjecting my experiences, and I think that's really important. I always tried to be out and about in the community, learning new things, meeting new people. And I would interject that into my classroom. I don't know how you do it today, but I didn't ever get burned out because
I think you make a very important point that it is keeping up with your interests. That's what I'm hearing from you. Keep your interests going, do that travel, get out and about, see what you want to see, do what you want to do, and then bring it into your classroom to make it more interesting.
And it turns the light on in the classroom, right?
Yes.
Oh, we're going to do the Cologne Cathedral today. Everybody knew what that was. I just think school needs to be exciting. And I go, I'm the first person to get bored. So if I'm bored, I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to wiggle my way around and figure out how to do it.
That's a great statement. Thank you, Gloria Taylor. You have given us a lot to think about and how to just rechannel this energy in kids. We're seeing a lot of nervous energy. I love your clip when you said, dump the energy. Kids have to have a place to dump the energy. I like that.
And we can't think that if they don't dump it, they're going to be fine, because they have to dump it. I have to dump my energy with a positive way to deal with who they are. Move and create.
Thank you. What a gift it has been to meet with you. This is across from Davis High School in Kaysville, Utah, Taylor Learning Center, Gloria Taylor. You are lovely in every way. I do like to end with a little spiritual thought, and it just comes from a personal experience. My very first experience in the classroom was at a school down in Springville, Utah called Art City Elementary, and it was with first graders. I remember starting to feel like, wow, maybe I'm in the wrong place. And this advice came from my own mother when I was telling her, I'm supposed to teach them this, I'm supposed to teach them this, and I'm adjusting to a first grade classroom. But my mom said to me, maybe you're worrying too much about the curriculum instead of just loving them, and go back to who you are and just loving these kids, and then worry about the curriculum. And that advice was not from a professor, it was from my own mother. And I thought, that's what it is. I know you build a relationship with your students. That's what I'm trying to do, is just love them, go where they are, and then the curriculum. And I think we have a little bit backwards in education. If we're too focused on the curriculum and on the testing and all the data, they don't really care, because I love that quote, kids don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. And from what I've seen in any situation with children, whether it's in church or school or my own children, they just want to be cared about first. So that's my little thought. Thank you for joining us. You have given us light and good things to think about, and how we can help any student of any type of learning style.
Thank you for letting me go down memory road.
Oh, we appreciate you.
Thanks for being part of today's class. To submit a question or topic for further episodes, please email elementary.schooled@outlook.com. School is out for today, but please remember, when we strengthen a child, we strengthen society.